Hi, I want to tell you about my invitation to the Tarot as an invitation to you to the Tarot. About 30 years ago, I was thinking about going back to graduate school, and someone suggested the transpersonal schools of psychology in California. And a number of books to read on that subject since I didn't really know anything about transpersonal psychology. And one of the first books I started reading was a book called Joy's Way by a MD named Brug Joy. And in that book, he recommends using the tarot as a means of connecting to the unconscious in a conscious way. Of course, the royal road to the unconscious is through your dreams, but you can't really do a whole lot with your dreams while you're awake, though there is active imagination and embodied dreaming. But anyway, so I read on in that book, and there was some other stuff in it I didn't really like, and I ended up putting it down, thinking that the whole thing was too flaky for me. And about that time, I had a subscription to Scientific American magazine, and I would read the natural history articles in it. And I had one magazine open to an article about lycaenid caterpillars that have a symbiotic relationship with ants. The ants naturally protect and feed from a certain type of plant that produces a nectar. And they have a symbiotic relationship where the ants will protect the plant from predators like caterpillars, and the plant will produce this sap that the ants eat. But these lycaenid butterflies in this article have evolved a way of transforming the same sap into a substance that is at once more nutritious and tastier than the sap itself. And they also have these little openings in their rear ends from which the ants can feed on this new transformed substance. And even more so, they have developed antenna that they can vibrate in such a way that it will call the ants. The ants will come and actually protect the caterpillars from wasps, which would otherwise sting the caterpillar and feed it to their larva. So it's quite a fascinating story. And at the same time, some ants started coming into my bathroom where I had this article open, and they were going in a line like ants do up the side of the toilet and actually walking over the article about ants. And I didn't really know much about synchronicity. I didn't know a whole lot about Jungian psychology at the time, but I recognized it as a synchronicity in the Jungian sense. And I remembered that my book on the Tarot by Brug Joy, at the beginning of each chapter, had a little picture of a caduceus with a caterpillar crawling up it and a butterfly hovering over it. So I said, well, maybe I should finish reading this book, and I did, and I ended up buying a deck of Rider-Waite tarot cards, which is what the author recommends. More about that in a minute. And around the same time, I had my first tarot reading. And in this reading, the tarot person had put the card for my relationship in a certain spot, and that card ended up being the devil. And she told me that my relationship was very bad, and that the longer I was in it, the worse it would get, and the harder it would be to leave it. And so the sooner I got out of this relationship, the better. And at the time, I was dating somebody that I'd known very long. I just started dating them, and her prediction was totally accurate. So I was sort of sold on the tarot, and I've been pulling cards ever since. I pull 3 cards a day. I have a little ritual that I do in the morning when I eat breakfast and take my supplements, and I incorporated that into, pulling the cards. I use 4 decks. Of course, I use the Rider-Waite. It has the best pips. The cards 1 through 10 each have a picture that sort of tells a story. And then I discovered another book called Jung and Tarot, and written by Sally Nichol. And it is the best book I've found on tarot, and in it she recommends the Marseille deck. But she doesn't even talk about the pips. All she talks about are the major arcana. And so I have incorporated the two, using her as an authority on the major arcana, and the Rider-Waite deck as an authority on the pips. I've also incorporated the Vertigo Tarot deck, which has a different take on a number of cards. Most of them are the same, and the same with the Salvador Dali deck. So that's my introduction and invitation to you to the tarot.